Welcome to Please Me, the podcast bringing you bold conversations and big clit energy. I'm Eve, your host, on a journey from trauma to sexual liberation. Join me and my guests as we dive into conversations around orgasm equality, self-love, body positivity, and essential sexual education. Let's reclaim pleasure and close the orgasm gap one empowering conversation at a time. Last week, I spoke with Max Carey about his documentary Touch Kink, where he draws us into the kink world with his characters who are living the BDSM lifestyle. It is a rare look at the reasons why many of us love to dabble in kinky play. Listen in and get ready to be intrigued. Please Me is for mature audiences. Sit back, relax, and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me.
It is very much about the community and the friendship. A lot of couples actually participate in lifestyle and do not play with other couples. And so that's usually really shocking to people to know.
Yes,
absolutely.
You go to any party and no matter what, people are just having so much fun because you are really, truly being your authentic self, right?
Yes.
And when you are constantly putting up walls to hide that you like this or like that, or are hiding quote unquote societal shameful topics, you're not going to fully be your authentic self. Hello, and welcome to Please Me, the podcast that aims to destigmatize conversations about sex and sexual health by turning the sheets into our classroom. Today, I have an amazing guest for you. Her name is Lauren Hayes, and she is a swinging and lifestyle coach. And you can find her as well as find me on sdc.com. She has a community there, as do I, and I am so excited to be talking to her today. She is in the process of writing a book called What Monogamists Can Learn from Non-Monogamists, and I 100% agree with that title. So without further ado, here is Lauren. Welcome to Please Me, Lauren. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
I'm so excited to talk to you and get into this conversation because ethical non-monogamy is something that I have discovered in the last, 6 years or so. And it has really changed my life. And I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, so I think we're very similar paths. My husband and I also started E&M 6 years ago. First of all, I don't know when you want to say this, but I just want to say that my husband and I have been swingers. So in the world of ethical non-monogamy, that very large umbrella term, there's polyamory and swinging. They're on different ends of the spectrum a little bit, and there's a lot of overlap in the communities as well. But the intentions behind it are very different. So my husband and I, 6 years ago, he really brought up a conversation about, I feel like there's something more. And a handful of years prior to that, I had been picked up by a polyamorous guy, or he tried to pick me up because he was like, "Are you and your husband polyamorous? I'm really getting that vibe from you." It was like, "No, we're not, but that's fascinating. Tell me more." And so we weren't interested in it at that time, but it was exciting when it happened. Oh, this person's hitting on me. Okay, so then fast forward, and he said, "I just feel like there's something more." And I knew he was talking about our relationship, and it was just an off comment, and I panicked. I was like, "What do you mean by more?" I'm like, "Do you want a girlfriend?" And he said, "No, I don't think I want a girlfriend. I just feel like there's something else or something more." And I went to a place where it's very common to go, which is, am I not enough? Are we not happy? Because I felt really broadsided by that. I thought we were very happy. He was like, "No, we are very happy. And I don't even really know what more means." And so we started bumbling around on the internet, as a lot of people do, with our own searches, and then eventually came up with The Ethical Slut. And so we started reading that book chapter by chapter. We would discuss it every week at our date night, like what's interesting, what's not interesting. And that led us down the path of swinging. And we've been in it for 6, and I've been coaching for over 2 now.
Amazing. And you're coaching people entering into the swingers lifestyle, or what exactly is your specialty in that? Because I know some people focus on beginners. So tell me what you like to do.
I actually coach both. I coach people who are curious about it and want to know more. Also, is it right for us? And having all the conversations that they don't know they should be having to decide that if they want to go into it or not. I have plenty of clients who will come to me, go through a couple months of coaching and talking and deciding whether that's something they want to pursue or not, and some don't. I also do coach people who are in non-monogamy, both swinging and polyamorous. I would say I generally work more with swingers just because I'm on SDC, and that's because that's the primary activity for my husband and I, though like I said, there's a lot of crossover in the communities. So we've done a little bit of both. But excuse me. But I will help people when they're in the lifestyle and they hit one of those hard things, because that happens to almost all of us. They hit a little spot where they're like, ooh, we're not sure how to navigate this. Feelings got hurt, or I feel like I messed up, or my partner messed up, or one of us really wants to continue in this and one of us doesn't. That's another thing that will happen. And those are all the types of couples that I typically work with. And I actually do work with some singles too, because as you're aware, there are some single people that are lifestyle and also looking for partners in the lifestyle and all the dynamics that kind of go with that.
Absolutely. Yes. A lot of times people think that swinging life is only for couples, right? But there are plenty of single women and single men in the lifestyle that enjoy participating in activities, etc., that are lifestyle related. So it's really for anybody that has any curiosity and really any sexual orientation as well. So it's very inclusive of everybody, which I absolutely love. So can you just define just a little bit like the difference between swinging and polyamory, just for everybody out there that doesn't understand that?
Absolutely. People, I feel, know more about polyamory. Polyamory is a little bit more in the limelight these days, which I think is great because they're forging a path for all of us, but they are in it for love and falling in love and multiple romantic, emotionally committed relationships. There's a lot of structures under that, and we don't need to get into all that. They might have multiple partners that know each other. They might have partners that don't know each other. There's all kinds of different ways that can go down. Then on the swinging end, we are in it more for, I say, friendship and sexual adventure. I always include friendship because a lot of people think this is only about sex, and it's really not. It is very much about the community and the friendship. A lot of couples actually participate in lifestyle and do not play with other couples. And so that's usually really shocking to people to know. So that is what swingers are in. They're usually partnered with a primary partner, like we just talked about. There are also singles. And I never speak in absolutes because anything goes, really. But generally, swingers are partnered. Generally, they're doing these things together. And they're not in it for romantic relationships, but just friendships and sexual relations.
Yes. So it's more like sexually driven, but absolutely friendship. And I'm going to just jump back to that.
Yeah.
It has such a big part to do with the community.
Yeah.
And I always say that swingers have the most fun, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You go to any party and no matter what, people are just having so much fun because you are really, truly being your authentic self, right?
Yes.
And when you are constantly putting up walls to hide that you like this or like that, or are hiding quote unquote societal shameful topics, you're not going to fully be your authentic self. But in that community, and also in the polyamorous community, I think as well, when you are fully being your true and authentic self, you are just going to have so much more fun than otherwise, I think.
Absolutely. And that's one of the chapters in my book, because all of the lessons that I have 7 life and relationship lessons are all things that are not exclusive to non-monogamy. And so that's the point of the book is, and one of those chapters is connect, because humans love to connect. We are in life to connect with other people. And swingers are pretty masterful at connecting with other people. And I know a lot of people are going to hear that as like fucking other people. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there are so many levels of friendship and connection between, hi, how are you? And I'm in love with you. And that's really the space we operate within these beautiful friendships that can go as deep as we choose or not as deep as we choose. And to your point, we're so vulnerable with each other from the moment we meet because we are all immediately holding each other's secret that this is what we do. And so this is the lesson for monogamous as well. It's meeting new people, going out, finding these communities where you feel you belong and you can be vulnerable in them. This is not exclusive to swingers. We're just really good at it.
100%. I love that. And I have to say that most of my really close friends now in the last 6 years that I developed, and even friends that I've had for 20 something years that, we've talked about and they've come into my world and, developed their own friendships, etc., are really like in this community, because when you can really be your true, full, authentic self, those are the people that you're going to want to hang out with and be friends with. And I'm not even talking about any sexual partners in what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like my true friends, my best friends, my girlfriends, my ride or dies that I go to for mom advice, for everything really,
Yes.
are in this community as well. I love that is how we support each other.
Yeah. And for people who are listening to this on podcast only, I'm over here nodding emphatically because this is something I talk about a lot. So when we first got into it and we would talk to people that had been into it a little longer than us, and they were like, oh, yeah, like all of our friends are lifestyle now. We were like, oh, like that's not going to be us. And then with them in here, we're like, okay, that's us, because you don't know getting into it about this community. And I have the ride or dies that I've been friends with since college, and they know. And I told them fairly early on because it is a disservice to that relationship when you can't share, like, oh, what did you do last night? Oh, we went out for dinner and drinks. Actually, we had an orgy with 8 people. That was my first time. And that was like, wow, amazing. Let me tell you about it. That's, I think, what can happen to some of those other relationships is they feel a little more surface because you can't share a lot of things with them.
That's absolutely true. So you mentioned the 7 life lessons from your book, and I would love to delve into some of those. Would you like to share some of those with
Yeah,
us?
absolutely. Okay, so one is create your own damn life. This is exactly as it sounds. What I think is interesting, so I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we moved here about 8 years ago. It's a very large lifestyle community, and most
Okay.
of the people are ex-LDS, not all, but many. So what I think is really interesting about these friends that I've made is that they're very evolved people. And what I've recognized is when you leave a high demand religion that is defining your whole life for you, and you leave that religion, you're really left with this blank slate of, okay, now what am I going to create? We all have that freedom. We actually we can choose our entire lives. We all have a blank canvas when we become adults. We forget that because of society pressures and family pressures and all the things. But really, we're here to create our own life, our own relationships. And especially people in non-monogamy really get this because we've had to really go against a cultural norm and find something that's very fulfilling and happy for us, something that we were told for so long that it's not good. So that was my first lesson. The second one is the one we already hit on, which is about connecting with other people and doing it often, having fun. It's very easy, especially as couples, to fall into ruts and patterns of what we do and finding the time and all those things. But it is imperative, I think, in our relationships. I have so many monogamous friends who go to therapy because they're like struggling in their marriage. And always the first piece of advice or question is, do you guys go out? Do you have fun together? Because that's such an important element in a relationship. The third one is emotional sovereignty. This is owning our own feelings. And this can be best explained in an example. It's, I feel jealous because the way you kissed that woman last night, I feel jealous, versus you made me feel jealous by the way you kissed that woman last night. These are very different conversations. And this
100%.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and this is something that we get really good at in non-monogamy is owning our own feelings. If we're going to be constantly blaming our partner for how we're feeling about something, this isn't going to go very far
Mm.
because that's just an unhealthy relationship dynamic. This gets highlighted in lifestyle because we're often talking about feelings and how we felt in a particular situation. And so just that simple fact of owning how we feel, huge. The next one, this is probably my favorite one, which is love your partner, but love yourself a little bit more. So this is getting to the idea of, and I am very much in this camp of having codependent tendencies, of being people pleasers, of putting other people's wants and needs ahead of our own, about putting other people's emotions as more important than our own. This comes about for lots of reasons, things that we, created in childhood or whatever. Again, non-monogamy is going to shine a light on this behavior because this is a space where you don't want to be just going along because your partner wants this. So
Mhm.
I will say till the day that I die, the relationship with yourself is the most important. And again, in lifestyle, and I think you'll agree, this is a learning process and you get better and better at listening to yourself. What do I want in this situation? What do I not want? And actually voicing these things because for a people pleaser, that can be the other really like scary part. And that's that's actually the next lesson, which is about self expression. So if we're going to create our own lives, we have to be checking in with ourselves and be like, what do I actually want from this life or this relationship or this situation? Then we actually have to say it out loud because we don't always get what we want, but for sure, you're not getting what you want if you can't even ask for it. The
Yes,
other
absolutely. Is that the self-expression one, the last one
So
that you
this
just
is
mentioned?
self-expression, and
So
self-expression has
mhm,
both voice, using our
mhm,
voice,
okay.
finding our voice,
Yes.
for all these reasons, whether it's communicating to someone in bed what you like sexually because you've never been with that person before, or communicating to your partner that this is not a direction in your relationship you want to go, or whatever. Big and little things. That voice gets stronger when you're in non monogamy. Well, you're practicing it in a healthy way. Sorry. The other part of self expression is something that you touched on earlier, sexual self expression. So that's a part of us that in our current culture, we don't get to express very often or very much. In fact, it's something that I would say a lot of women are not even, they don't even know what their sexual self would do. I think what happens to a lot of women is we go into lifestyle with our same reservations that we have, and maybe comparing it to dating life or just our culture in general. And you quickly see these women expressing themselves wearing very little clothing. And we're not talking about perfect bodies here. So, this very body positive, sex positive environment where you can flirt with anyone, you can smile at people, you can really explore that side of yourself. And there isn't or generally speaking, I don't ever speak in absolutes, but there isn't repercussions. We're not being judged. One example I use, especially as women that I think we can relate to, in a vanilla club or back in the day when I was dating, you smile at the wrong guy and like he follows you around all night. You have that potential of kind of just ruining the whole night because you let somebody know you thought they were cute. Then fast forward to here, and I feel like you can just do those things, and there isn't that kind of of like, oh my gosh, this person's gonna think that I really like them now just because I flirted with them or had a fun conversation. And so I think that's so very freeing for women in particular. And the men love it. Not just because women are walking around in lingerie, but because we're expressing our sexual, sensual selves. We're expressing our whole selves, and our partners love it.
Yes, and in any conversation, communication is so important, and it, like you said, it gets easier and easier. So when people are just first entering, it's going to be really difficult to have these conversations. But as you practice, as you communicate with your partner, or if you're a single person with new partners, and practice having these conversations, it does become easier and easier each time. And you mentioned someone following you around a club that you just smiled at in a vanilla situation. And that too can benefit from communication and putting that person in their place.
Yes.
Listen, we had a nice conversation, but now I want to hang out with
Yes.
my girlfriend and I am not interested in
Yes.
spending the rest of the evening with you. I'm going to go over here and you can go over there. And it was nice to meet you. And being confident with having these conversations in any situation, because those things will translate, and practicing communication will translate to all areas of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are you looking for a sexy date? Look no further than SDC.com. SDC.com is the premier ethically non-monogamous website that is worldwide. It also hosts a wealth of information on sexuality and sexual health, and I host a free live webinar monthly on the site. You can use code 37340 for a free trial membership on me, and be sure to reach out on the site and say hello.
And then my last chapter is about pleasure. Allowing pleasure, being very conscientious about receiving versus giving when you are in these different modes. And because pleasure and sexual pleasure both come with some baggage in our culture, it's this push-pull between pleasure has to be earned or fed with a little dose of guilt versus also, here's all these things we have for sale for your immediate pleasure. So it is a very interesting kind of paradox that we live in, and it can be frustrating and confusing. And in lifestyle, especially in the swinging realm, that's what we're in it for. We're in it for pleasure, whether it's the pleasure of the community, like we were just talking about, or sexual pleasure. But you get really good at allowing pleasure.
Yes, and asking for it. And the name of my show is Please Me.
Yeah.
It's all about women finding their pleasure, learning what pleasures them, and then being able to communicate that to other people, because there is such a thing as an orgasm gap, right? And women having less orgasms in heterosexual relationships than men do. And that goes across the board from hookups all the way to marriage and everything in between. So asking for the pleasure that you want, knowing your body, knowing what works for you, and being able to communicate that with your partner is so essential. So I 100% am on board with that chapter. And I would love to expand a little bit more on something that we talked about on our pre-call, which was sex magic, because I know that you talk about that in your book too. And I just want to know what that means to you, because I have so many ideas about that those two words put together. So tell me what that means to you.
Okay. Let me give 1 second thought of that, just because it can be so many different things, and it can actually be just very self-defined as well. So I will say the simplest explanation I would say is sex creates energy. It creates energy within us, and orgasm puts energy out into the world. So sex magic is being conscious of those things and consciously guiding this energy into our lives, into the session. A lot of people are very they think energy work is so woo-woo. Maybe. And you can, if you just sit with yourself, you can, even if you feel like you're imagining it, you can feel energy inside of you. And that's a lot of what energy work is. You're just imagining the movement of energy within you. In particular, and this does not have to be with a partner, it can also be with yourself. But if you're generating this sexual energy, which we know we can feel, and translating this into, okay, I'm going to send some of this energy either internally. Maybe you want to heal something from your past, or you're having a trouble with something right now. And it's literally just thinking about that in the moment. I'm going to send some of this amazing healing energy to the part of me that was wounded as a child or whatever. Now, this can go all the way to some people believing that we can manifest things in our life by using this, again, this energy, and not only keeping it within ourselves, but especially at the time of orgasm, really setting an intention for something that I'm not talking about getting a new bicycle or something like that, something that you want in your life that energetically you want to draw to you, whether it's a different kind of people or it can be material things. There's no judgment. It's just a game, right? But it is just first getting really clear on that energy that we're creating in pleasurable sexual moments.
I like to do in season 4 a little role play, and I hope you're up for it because I think it would be a lot of fun to model the kind of conversation that you might have with somebody who is being introduced to, say, the ethical non-monogamy lifestyle or the swingers lifestyle. So let's pick one or the other so that we can be more clear.
Okay, let's just say we're going to go for the generic conversation. Like, I don't even know yet if I'm more interested in polyamory or swinging.
Okay, very good. And so you're going to be the person and I'm going to be the newbie?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And we are in a relationship already?
So we're in a relationship already, possibly, probably long term. I've heard a podcast recently that talked about ethical non-monogamy, and I'm curious in learning more and want to bring it up to my partner, but I'm nervous about that.
Perfect. Okay, so you'll start talking. So action.
Okay. Hey, Eve, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and I know sounds a little crazy, but it was about ethical non-monogamy. Do you know anything about that?
Oh, yeah, I think I've heard about that before. It's the orgies and swingers, right?
Yeah, they were talking about swinging, and they also brought up polyamory, and I guess these are both considered ethical non-monogamy. And I know this sounds so crazy, but I found it a really exciting conversation.
What did you
Yeah,
find exciting about it?
they really talked about the community being so fun and the social scene, particularly in the swinging scene. And I have never thought about anything like this before. And honestly, I'm really nervous to bring it up with you.
Don't be nervous because I'm open to hearing about it.
Okay. I don't know. It sounded really exciting and fun. And I think it would be great if we went out more. And maybe this is a community that we could just check out because whatever this is, I would want to do this together.
Okay, and what turned you on about it? I'm just curious what you liked about the conversation that sort of piqued your interest.
I mean, they did talk about a sexual adventure aspect to this, of course, as well, particularly in the swinging. And you know how we always talk about threesomes when we're in the bedroom? I don't know, what if it was like possible to do that in real life? Is that something you were really interested in, or we just talk about it in fantasy?
We have talked about this in terms of it being a fantasy of ours, but I just want to make sure that it's not because you're not satisfied with me or with, how our relationship is, because I know that I, care a lot about you and I, would hate for things to, be ruined between us.
Oh my gosh, Eve, you are my number one. You will always be my number one. I would never even be interested in doing this if I didn't feel so safe and secure in our relationship already. I would never suggest doing anything that would jeopardize what we have. It's the world to me.
I appreciate you saying that because I feel the same way. And I'm just curious, have you looked into where we would possibly have some kind of relationship like that or friendship or meet somebody? Like, how do you even know what to do?
I don't know. I just listened to this one podcast and I really didn't even want to start looking into it until I brought it up with you because I want this to be something that we do together. Like, if we're going to even explore it or talk about it, I don't want to do that without you.
I definitely am intrigued. And I think we can definitely have more conversations about it. I'm just a little bit nervous too, because I want to protect my health.
Oh my God, I know. I have a zillion questions. I have no idea how this works really. It was just really interesting to hear about it. And yeah, we could probably just start listening to some podcasts together or something. Like, does that sound like a good way to start?
I think that sounds like a great way to start. Why don't we do that?
Cool.
End scene. Very good. And both of us have experience in this world, right?
Yes.
And I just want to pop up here that we are both on SDC.com, and that's my promo code. If you are interested in learning more about ethical non-monogamy, I do free webinars on SDC.com monthly. And I know that you also do webinars on there as well. And it's a great place to educate yourself. And also, it's a dating site. You can meet people there that are either polyamorous or ethically non monogamous swingers, or really, there's like everything on there. So it is a great place to meet people. And it is where I met my partner, my current partner.
Oh, that's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's so much on there. There are blogs and webinars, and it's everything you can think of. I feel like it's a great place to start when people are just trying to get a little acclimated.
Absolutely. Yes. It's a great place to start and a great place to stay because honestly, the community is so large. It's a huge international community. And like you said, there's so much education, there's so many articles, there's so much learning that you can do on there. Definitely check that out. And so thank you for doing that role play with me. That was so much fun. And I want to make sure that my listeners can find you. Tell us where we can find you.
Okay, a couple places. One of the best places is just on my website, which is swinginglifestylecoach.com. I have a blog there, again, for educational and fun purposes. I have resources. My webinars are there. My forthcoming book, which should be out by the end of the year, I'll make announcements there. You can also sign up for my newsletter, which is a great, and I'm not I don't newsletters so often. So it's a great place to stay up with me. On SDC, I also have a group. If they're not already familiar, there are, groups that you can join. My group is called Swinging Lifestyle Coach. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Swinging Lifestyle Coach. And my actual profile name on SDC is Swinging Coach. So very similar across the board, and you can find me in all those places.
Perfect. And I also have a group on SDC.com. It's called Please Me Health Collective. And I post on there about my webinars, etc., and any events that I have. And you also mentioned, and I don't want to end this conversation without mentioning your retreat, because you had a very successful retreat. And I want you to just talk about that.
Yeah, so the retreat is actually in a couple weeks. There's actually one space open if anybody still wants to squeeze in. It is a weekend retreat. It's called the Conscious Couples Mountain Retreat. It has a focus on creating what I call sacred partnership, but actually it's one of the things I have couples do is name that, whatever they want to name it and what works for them, and really creating what that means for them. That's really that, even if you're in an amazing relationship, just creating the real structure of what are we working towards in our relationship at all times. And then the second night is a journey. And then Sunday morning, we have a circle where we share. And it's a small group of people. It's up to 6 to 7 couples. It is all lifestyle people. And that is not entirely the point. It's more relationship focused. The workshops are going to be more focused on you, but we're all lifestyle. And so connecting with everyone is also the point.
Okay, fun. Sounds like a lot of fun. And I love that you delve into creating that sacred relationship between partners, because our divine feminine really, and connecting with that higher power, I think is part of sexuality. I find it to be a very spiritual thing. And when you connect on that level energetically, it can make your relationship or relationships so much more beautiful. So thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been so much fun. I want to make sure that my listeners know where to find me, pleaseme.online, all of my podcasts, my store of curated sex toys, my webinars, and all of the interviews that I've done on other podcasts are on there. So check that out. And also, if you loved this show as much as I loved recording it, grab your phone right now and copy it and send it to somebody that you think might be interested. It might be your partner, it might be someone else, or your friend or whoever that you might want to have a conversation about what we talked about today with them. Share it, because sharing is caring, and that is a lifestyle tagline. So
Yes.
I'll end with that. Sharing is caring.
Thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Are you in perimenopause or postmenopause and wondering about hormone replacement therapy? As a pelvic floor physical therapist, I help women to navigate this time of their lives. Did you know that 30% of our lives will be in menopause? It's important to try to strive for optimal levels of hormones in your body. What I use is Parlor Games. I use the Silky Peach Cream, and that's the estrogen cream. And I use the Vibrant Third, and that's the progesterone cream. And I cycle that throughout the month. You want to make sure that your levels remain optimal throughout your life so that you can enjoy vaginal health and an amazing sex life. So check out in the show notes the link to get your own today.